Hi everyone, and welcome back to QPOV. So I've been on a little bit of a vacation in the past, but I'm back now, and I have just seen a play on that vacation, a musical called Brigadoon that I saw at the Shaw Festival, and that was a lot of fun. But a few disclaimers right off the bat: I'm going to be spoiling a lot because I'm going to get into a lot of the little details of this play. And the first big detail in the room is that the two main characters of this romantic musical comedy are a straight couple. We're not going to let that get in our way, though. I'm going to make it queer anyway. So, to start off, the play Brigadoon is about a little town in Scotland, and this play focuses on these two men who stumble upon Brigadoon, a town that only appears once every 100 years. So they've happened upon it by chance, and the main character, Tommy, falls in love with this girl, Fiona, who's from Brigadoon. The only problem is, Fiona can't leave Brigadoon because of the spell on it. So she can't leave, and he doesn't know if he can stay. So even though they love each other, they're not sure if they can be together, and in the end, Tommy, he chickens out, he has doubts, he doesn't know where this will end up, so he goes back to America, to his fiancée. He's had his fiancée the whole time, but right as he's about to marry her, he realizes, no, I've loved Fiona this whole time, I need to go back to Brigadoon. So this is what I wanted to talk about, was that he goes back, and Tommy goes back to Brigadoon, and even though it was pre-established that the town only appears once every 100 years, just because he's able to hope and hope and hope, even though he can't find it at first, doesn't know where it is, another miracle happens that allows him to go back and be with Fiona. Yes, the play has talked about miracles, the fact that this town only exists every 100 years, so another miracle happens, so he's allowed to go back, even though the one little window he had ran out. It feels as though the musical, or the play, is doing the cliche thing of, oh, the two romantic interests always have to end up together at the end, no matter what. And it's something that I haven't seen a lot in queer plays that I have read. For example, Cat and Griff. You have two girls that are in a good friendship, and they fight and stuff, they get into arguments like any friends would, and it starts to grow into something else. But that something else is filled with a lot of miscommunication. Like, things happen that maybe some characters don't want to happen, and it pretty much ends in tragedy. They don't end up together, and it's heartbreaking to see. Then there's Angels in America, which has several couples, a mix of gay couples, straight couples, and all that. But with all the stress from the AIDS crisis, politics, family, questioning sexual identity, and all of that, everyone is pretty much broken up in the end. No one is in a relationship, in a couple, in a happy romantic relationship. Some of them are still friends, some of them still talk, and that's fine. But even when you have a play that miracles are literally happening everywhere. You have angels walking the streets. San Francisco has become heaven. There's a trip to Antarctica halfway through, and we just accept it. But there's all these miracles, and there's none that bring a couple back together in a loving romantic relationship like we see in Brigadoon. I'm not saying that this is good or bad. It's just something that I've noticed when reading queer fiction and queer plays versus reading other plays that aren't centered around queer characters or written by queer people, unless it's fan fiction, but we're not going to get into that right now. So it's something that to recognize that queer couples a lot of the time don't get the happy ever afters that we see a lot in straight romantic fiction and theater. So the fact that this idea is so prominent to me, and it's so prominent that I bet if Brigadoon had a queer main couple, they wouldn't have been allowed to end up together in the end, because the myth surrounding queer theater includes the consensus that happy endings are so rare that they're almost not allowed. I know this isn't true. I know that a lot of plays do end up with queer happy couples, straight happy couples, I know that. But to me, at least, what I have consumed and how I consume it, those endings, the romantic happy couple at the end, just isn't that common. So that was the first thing I realized when I was watching Brigadoon. There was one last thing I wanted to talk about, and it was about this one character called Harry. Now, midpoint through the play, this young man Harry, he talks about his experience in Brigadoon and how he feels about this situation that he's in. He doesn't like that he's stuck here and has to obey these rules of I can't even go to the border of the town or else like it'll start thunderstorming. And he didn't ask to be stuck every hundreds of years, and so he tries to escape. He's done. He wants out. But in his escape, he ends up dying. He falls, he dies, and even though the people mourn his death, they are thankful above all else that Brigadoon is still safe. Now, I want to take a step back and just look at that for a second, because you have a conformed society that has its rules, its ideologies, its philosophy surrounding the situation that it's in, i.e. Brigadoon. It only appears once every 100 years in order to keep it safe. But then you have one person who doesn't feel as though they belong. They didn't ask for these ideologies to rule their lives, but their ideas are being shunned. They feel like their ideas don't fit, and so much so that they feel like they have no other choice but to leave. But you're not allowed to leave because that would mean that you're not happy, therefore society isn't happy. So this happens so much so that with their only solution to escape, but once the idea of escape is brought up, the whole majority reacts to it in fear that through passive silence of their own situation, they're like, okay, no, like that can't happen. Like, because he's speaking out, that means something's wrong, but nothing can be wrong. Sort of thing. It's like this illusioned idea that like, oh, we're in a bubble, we're safe, and they're not recognizing how the bubble how it could be for other people to experience in that bubble. So when Harry dies, when the idea is killed, the idea of escape is killed with him, and everyone assumes that order has been reformed. Everything is back to the way it was, everything is good. So to me, this feels a lot like the story or the idea or the experience that many people had of being a queer kid in a small town. They don't feel like they can relate to anyone. They feel like all their ideas are wrong and harmful to themselves and everyone else. And the made community that's made around them doesn't feel like it's made for them. So Harry was killed off in the play because of his difference from everyone else. And his ideas were painted as something that's dangerous and crazy. And that's similar to how many members of the queer community are painted as in some societies. Like, being queer is seen of as like, oh, something's wrong with you, something's not right, that's weird, like we should fix this. So they do that. They don't try to understand the ideas at all. They immediately shut these ideas down. They are then seen as a problem that needs to be killed off instead of opening up the conversation so that people are speaking on a more even ground, so more ideas can be shared, and therefore more ideas can help solve more problems. So they don't get to the source. By doing this, they don't get to the source of the problem. Instead, they make excuses that one person's lifestyle and one person's sexual identity is the root of all problems within society. So it's kind of like backwards mixing, like coming up with the scapegoat, pretty much. They become the scapegoat to all problems within society, which isn't right. It isn't critically thought through. It's just acted on through fear. So I know this is a pretty deep read into Harry's character and his experience, because the character itself wasn't painted as queer at all. But his experience and how he was acting within his moment related to my understanding and my experience with queer ideas and other queer stories that I've heard. So those who feel as though they are isolated from society and don't feel like anyone understands them, like that's something that Harry represented for us queer people watching. So as I said before, like one can read what they see from anything with many different perspectives, and mine is that of a queer point of view. This is what I took from my time watching Brigadoon, and I hope that it was insightful to you and that you learned a couple things from what I see. So thank you for watching this QPOV with me. Bye!